Hey scrappers, if you're looking to figure out what materials you should sell this week or hold this week, now is the time to do it. Our weekly report is going to give you that information, up-to-date market news, pricing. Let's get right into it and we'll talk about it inside. Hey scrappers, Tom here from the iScrap app, and today is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. I am obviously not in the office today. I have a presentation to give. I'm down in Atlanta, so we're pre-recording this. So any of your questions, please continue to ask your questions because we answer those throughout the week through all of our social platforms, or we'll end up answering them in person when we resume our live sessions next week. So here we are. It's a big week. We saw a new administration come in. We immediately saw 200 executive orders. We saw different things rolling back. But how are these things going to affect the scrap market? That's what I'm interested in. When I look at a lot of the things that are happening, unfortunately, a lot of them are going to take months to be able to unfold. And what do I mean? We've talked about tariffs, right? So how are the tariffs going to be imposed? You know, we're talking about already having tariffs imposed potentially next week on Canada and Mexico, as the president wants to be able to renew the agreement, the USMCA. Why could these hurt us? Well, you know, they could cause things to go up temporarily, but ultimately I believe that they're being used as a bargaining tactic, and those could hurt some of the scrap industries, but that's not really where I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the overseas tariffs, but I'm interested to see in what happens on a lot of the materials staying here in the country. Just a few weeks ago, you probably heard about the US Steel deal that was supposed to be sold to Nippon Steel out of Japan, where that deal was blocked. And now we're starting to see, okay, what's going to happen if more manufacturing, more metal recycling, more new metal creation like foundries and mills are pushed out of the country? That's the opposite of what we want, because that turns the United States from being independent to being dependent on other countries for metal. So that's not where I think that we're going to go. But I think what we are going to see is a loosening of economic sanctions internally in the US. So we're going to start to see policies disappearing. So we could start to see a further growth, which could be a positive sign. You know, in the past, people have talked about things like the Infrastructure Act and how much material is going to be needed. And we saw that that didn't really materialize in the amount of scrap that was needed, because steel would have been the primary recipient of higher prices. And we know that that was not the case, as steel prices continue to be so low. So when I look at steel prices, and yes, I did see about a $10 to $15 uptick in certain areas last week with no demand. Internationally, it was more of a localized demand because some people have just not been able to, some mills have not been able to repopulate their piles, so they push prices up a little bit to get some material in. But I'm not sure that that's going to be sustainable, and those are the things that we talk about week to week. What's sustainable? What builds are sustainable? Are auto sales going to go up? Are people going to be recycling cars more often? You know, those are the things that we're going to be looking for. But again, months in the making it's going to take for that to really be able to materialize. I just don't expect to see that happening anytime, you know, in the first quarter of 2025. So copper prices, steel prices, aluminum prices, we talk about these every single week and we look at them. You know, it's nice to read some articles that give you a little idea of what's going on. So here in oilprice.com, tariff uncertainty is creating volatility in copper prices while aluminum remains more stable. Traders are watching for further policy announcements and potential rate cuts that could shift market dynamics. So this is really a lot of what we've talked about for months being put into another article. Aluminums continue to be strong, being used in so many different sectors, but copper could be substituted by aluminum. That doesn't mean you're going to get the true connectivity that you want, but copper being substituted in could make it, you know, or substituted out could hurt the markets. But ultimately, the long transmission lines, the long power lines, the lines that we need to be able to really run massive amounts of power are going to continue to be copper. So aluminum is going to continue to be put a little bit into the electrical, into the building, window frames, cars, things like that. So I really expect to see a very strong aluminum demand for the foreseeable future. Now, Another thing that I briefly talked about was steel, and this was an article from Recycling Today saying Midwest and the South are seeing the biggest gains. Ferrous scrap prices rose significantly in late December through mid-January, with the South leading the increase for number one HMS at $30 per ton. So we're starting to see a little bit of an increase. I mean, how much lower could we possibly have gone? I can't imagine we could have gone much lower than we were already at. So we're starting to see an increase. Now, what am I going to look at? I'm going to look at oil prices, right? President Trump has talked about drill, baby, drill. How's that going to affect the natural gas, the oil markets? Again, months in the making it's going to take, but just the knowledge that these different executives can start to work on projects to produce more oil, decrease fuel costs, that could lead to more economic innovation, more building going on. But these are the things we continue to look at. Now, another article that I read from oilprice.com talked about Canada and talked about some of its rare earths, which we've talked about. So, Canada is ramping up rare earth element mining and processing to reduce dependence on China and support its green energy goals. Targets rare earth boom with lithium, nickel, and cobalt, but a lot of regulatory hurdles. So, this article talks about how Canada is looking to detach themselves because of the massive amounts of minerals that they have in their country. They're very expensive to take out, but when you're able to figure out how to do it and what to do, and then you have the processing for it, that could decrease the dependence that the United States, Canada, and Mexico have on countries like China. That could increase some of the internal prices, and these are things that we look at for really strong things. Now, when we talk about rare earth alloys, we talk about lithium ion, we talk about all these little things, we still have catalytic converters in there, and rrcats.com is continuing to buy catalytic converters. But when we look at the catalytic converters, where the market's going to go, and this is an interesting article that I read, first time that I've seen something in a while. Topic: Palladium demand has dropped due to increased platinum substitution and EV adoption. This is exactly what we've talked about with a little extra flair, talking about how they've been using platinum more than palladium, because right now, believe it or not, platinum palladium prices are about the same. So having steady prices on catalytic converters is great. Seeing what's going to happen this year, just seeing Trump the other day getting rid of the EV mandate could start to increase some auto sales in different areas where people aren't kind of forced, but different states have different uh, goals. I know, California, New York, New Jersey, still very strong EV goals. Are they going to continue their forward path while the US government kind of moves directions? I don't know. These are going to be things we watch for. But going back to the palladium, so palladium demand has dropped due to increased platinum substitution. Potential sanctions on Russian mines could impact prices. No restrictions have been imposed yet. Again, another negotiating tactic that may be used. This could be something between the US, Ukraine, and Russia, starting to work on how we're going to end multiple wars, which we've already started to see in the Middle East, things having ceasefires. So again, UBS forecasts a 300,000 ounce shortfall of palladium. That's 3% of demand in 2025. Could that lead to increased pricing? Yes, but if you're able to use platinum as a substitute, I don't know what we're going to see here. Not a lot of stuff, but we are seeing lower mine output will probably be balanced by higher scrap supply. What does that mean? I think that a lot of auto recyclers are holding a lot of catalytic converters, and these are just news and different things that I've been hearing for months and years, since the market really turned around for the last 18 months. A lot of people are holding on to their cats. If they're holding on to their cats, what does that mean? That means that we may start to see a little bit of a flow into the market once we see prices go up. That could be bad because we could immediately start to see pricing going down, but continue to get prices at rrcats.com. This way you can always learn what's going on with these markets. Now, overall, scrappers, markets are strong, aluminum is strong, copper prices are strong, steel prices are improving, but really not even close to being there. And again, we're in the second full day of the Trump administration. A lot of changes are going to be happening, and unfortunately, it's going to take months for these things to materialize and then flow into the different scrap markets. So, if we had scrap markets and scrap prices where they are for the next 3 months, I'd be very happy. By the end of the year, I do expect these markets to see increasing pricing, increasing demands. I expect to see things really taking shape in the third quarter. But I'd love to answer questions or hear thoughts that you have. I read a lot of the comments on YouTube and our other channels that this is posted on. So please let us know what's going on. Until next week, scrappers. Today is January 22nd, 2025. My name is Tom from Rockley Recycling in the iScrap app, and I'll talk to you next week. Scrap you later.